Thank you so much for having me today.
This is a very delicate topic because you don't want to come off insensitive. You don't want to come off like you're judging. But it's hard when you see these images, primarily of women, men as well, and it's daunting. Where it's so thin that you see bone, you see, it's like that.
Right. It's really scary right now, and it's very nuanced at the same time, because we have GLP-1 medications, which are treatments that are available, treatment options that are available for individuals with obesity and diabetes. But there's other individuals, perhaps some celebrities and others, that are getting them, probably microdosaging them, and it is getting quite scary.
It is, because we were discussing how all of these things come in cycles. Like in the 90s, it was Kate Moss and the heroin chic of it all. And then the Kardashians and Jennifer Lopez, it was like embrace your curves or be athletic.
I love that.
And now we're coming back to this super thin. So what came first? Is it the availability of the GLP-1s? Like, what is it, and what line? How did we get here? Is this just a cycle?
It's unfortunate, but celebrities kind of set the trends, right? If it's body, what bodies look like, although bodies should never be a trend, right? But it's what they're wearing, what they're doing, what they're not doing, kind of set trends. And I think that's where this kind of started. I remember it was a few years ago already that GLP-1s really became known, and again, for the treatment of obesity or diabetes, and then people kind of started realizing, wow, you can lose weight quickly on these medications. I wonder if it's right for me. And then when you see individuals, public figures, celebrities doing things like that, people become curious and people start comparing themselves.
And it's hard to know when to stop.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, I lost a few pounds, I could stop, but then it just gets to like, how do you kind of dictate when to stop?
Well, I mean, the real key is to be able to work with your healthcare professional, right? Like, not everybody needs to lose weight. Not everybody should be losing weight. Some people want to be losing weight, maybe for the wrong reasons. So really working with a healthcare professional is the right thing to do. It can become very dangerous. So when I work with individuals on GLP-1s, one of the first things I ask them when they tell me that they're interested is I want to know if they have a history of disordered eating or eating disorders. Somebody with a history of eating disorders or disordered eating thoughts or behaviors, I'm going to be extra cautious about referring them to a provider who might prescribe that medication until we really dive into what's going on in their current life and how some of those old behaviors and thoughts could start creeping in again.
Because it goes from less about vanity itself and more about, like, my wife struggled with anorexia. She's very open about it. And for her, it was control. It wasn't about like, oh, I want to look a certain way. It was like, I'm out of control.
I have control.
I need to control something. And you can control your weight. So do you think that's the case with a lot of these celebrities?
Well, I think for eating disorders in general, a lot of individuals that struggle with disordered eating or eating disorders do kind of crave that control, right? Like, other areas of their life are out of control. I mean, life happens, lots is out of our control. And this is one thing that people can control, but it can be really hard to control. And these medications help control appetite. That's partly how they work. So when people are like, oh, wow, I can go on a medication that's going to help me do that and make it easier for me, they're going to want to do it. But again, these medications are not trends, and they're actually medications indicated for people with chronic illness.
I also think, though, in the 80s and 90s, we weren't talking about GLP-1s. People were just eating less. It was a Diet Coke and a Marlboro, and that was like your steady diet for the week. So who is the arbiter of, who's going to come out and say, like, enough? Because we didn't have social media in the 90s. You can find the beacon of I want to look like this wherever you want. So who's going to call out whom and why?
The pharmaceutical companies are loving it because they're making tons of money.
Yeah. No, it's scary because of social media, to be honest. I love social media for some things, and I think for other things it's quite dangerous because we're comparing, right? As humans, we like to compare. It's actually, our brain does that to protect us. But we're looking at individuals in the media, on the news, on social media. We're seeing shrinking bodies, and we're comparing ourselves. Naturally, that's what we do. Like, oh, what are they doing? Should I look this way? Should I be this? Should I be that? And that can really be detrimental to our mental health and emotional well-being.
So if we have someone in our life who we know is dangerously thin, how do we even have that conversation?
So it's a sensitive one, and we have to be very careful with it. So first, I would say we don't have it in a public setting, right? It's something that you're going to do very private, and the timing has to be right. I always say whenever we have sensitive conversations like this, don't do it when you're already emotional. So, like, you're not talking about these types of things already, right? And I think you need to go from a place of concern and try to take the body out of the equation. right? So like, I see you've been really stressed lately. Is everything okay? You know, taking it a different angle on how they're functioning, right? Like, oh, you've been so tired lately, or you've been late to work lately. You know, what's going on? And I think going that angle is better, because we really do want to still stay away from talking about or making comments about body shape and size.
Right.
Holy smokes. What about intergenerationally? You know, because my grandmother, my kid's grandmother, my mother, you know, Midge, she's Latina, B, she's 89, and that she's of the va-va-voom generation. Right. But she'll look even at my two boys and be like, you need to eat more.
Right.
How do we tell them to have that conversation in an appropriate way?
It's so hard. You know, I work with so many of my clients about this because their grandparents might comment on them, things like that. And, you know, we can't really unlearn so much, right? Like, if you've been doing something for years and that's what you've known, it's difficult. We can learn and unlearn things, but it's more difficult for that generation. Yeah. But I still think the conversation can happen. And I think, again, pulling the grandmother, say, away, not in front of the kids, and say, like, you know, we don't really comment on these things, you know? Or like, he's doing well, he's all right, let me worry about that, let me take care of it, right? So I think kind of if we can get that message across, that we just don't comment on people's body shape, size, or even eating behaviors, right? And especially not in a public setting, right? If they want to ask you, and then, you know, you then decide if it's a concern or not. But we need to have those conversations.
Holy smokes.
Well, thank you very much.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, but important information.
Yes,
thank you always.
Thank you.
For more information, give her a follow on Instagram at Dr. Rachel NYC. You can also pre-order her book, When Life Happens, right now on Amazon.